Hello, partners. This is Emily Freitag at Instruction Partners, and it is Friday, March 27th. Today, I wanted to bring to you a plan that one of our partners is working through and communicating to principals today, because I think it illustrates a number of really important elements of the decision making that systems are having to work through right now, and would just be helpful to see a very concrete example. So here we go, sharing my screen. We are going to also be sharing this PowerPoint in PowerPoint form, in case it is helpful to use this as a starting point to adapt your own plan. You'll see it's not on Instruction Partners branding or anything like that, hoping that it can be just a grab and go resource for you all. This is designed to be a principal meeting with all of the principals in the system. This is a slightly larger system, so more than 25 principals, but I think the decision making is still really relevant for small systems as well. So it starts out with assumptions, just opening the meeting by getting everyone on the same page about what's happening. Things are moving so quickly. We are seeing that it is important to keep your team on the same page about just the state of the outbreak in your local community and what's happening. Obviously, this can be very triggering, so I'm doing so sensitively. But just normalizing for your team that this is an extraordinary and unusual time and will require extraordinary and unusual acts. And then sharing what are your priorities for managing during COVID? What are you working towards? And then orienting the team to core values. How are you as a team going to operate during this time? Keeping those values front and center will give your team a touchstone for how they should be operating. The other thing we're starting to see is just trying to create clearer norms for communication. Who should be communicating out and when, just to ensure that the team is on the same page. We are seeing many systems orient to this hierarchy of needs to allow for just a common mental model of the different kind of work that the system is taking on and the order of operations. And you can even create visions and updates using the hierarchy of needs, but orienting the team to it. Decision making. This is really emerging as an important and sometimes missing moment to really understand in this moment who is making decisions. So I should go back to the hierarchy and say the balance of this presentation is really about the learning focus, and what is it's really focus 4, 5, and 6: engagement in relationships, access, and learning. So who is the decision maker about what the engagement and instructional program needs to look like? There are 3 options that we're seeing emerge here. Teacher autonomy, so each teacher decides. Pros of that is that it can be more similar to current operations in many places and allow for each teacher to customize to their students. The challenge becomes equity. So especially if teachers are sick or need to care for their family, it can lead to inequitable instruction for students. It also can create confusion for families if each teacher is using a different system or a different routine. Another option would be principal autonomy. So each principal decides on the instructional program for their school. The benefits of this is that it respects the different plans already in place and in motion, and it allows for what's happening to be more similar to past reality. The challenges here, it could lead to conflicting schedules and guidance if families have students in multiple schools, and it could lead to inequity across schools. You could have some schools doing a lot more than others. Option C would be a central district plan. the benefits of this is that it might lighten the load for planning. If like, here's the plan. The challenge is, of course, it might be too rigid for some contexts. And in some systems, there might just not be the ability to put together that kind of a centralized plan. I will tell you, we are working next week to create a default full instructional program for a week, and we're going to do it week by week, as if it gets used as a starting option. So that can be part of the resources that are coming. But back to decision making, no matter what, it feels like this is the framework that a school system does need to decide who makes the call. The system that I'm going to keep working through here is using option C, but with the allowance for option B. So if a school wants to do their own program, they have an approval process to say, great, you go. And they're doing that for each grade band. You could have different decisions for different grade bands. So you could have one approach in elementary and a different approach in middle school or high school. Seeing some trend that high schools are actually going towards more of the central district plan, because sometimes the systems that you can use for that online programming in high school are more centralized. So getting clear on that decision seems important. Communicating that decision to everyone at the system level seems very important. And then getting even more specific about roles and responsibilities. This will likely look quite different, similar but different than your pre-COVID roles and responsibilities. We have yet to see a school system that hasn't had to adapt something, either because someone is unable to do the work and needs to take care of themselves and their families, or because there's something about the system that needs to look different in this context. This is one model. It is absolutely fine to use this and adapt, but being very clear about who is doing what is lowering anxiety in places during this time of uncertainty. And I think that is the leader's responsibility. I want to talk about phases, because this is definitely making things easier to imagine for many schools. We are seeing a growing number of schools say, let's take this, one phase at a time. So maybe we're going to start instruction next Wednesday, and we're just going to try Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then we're going to move to a new phase the week after. And then we're going to move to a new phase for the 2 weeks after that. And so that phasing then allows for continuous improvement. It allows it to feel a little bit more manageable than having to imagine the whole year. And it allows to communicate externally, we're going to try this and we're going to adapt. And so definitely seeing a lot of places think about phases. It also allows you to stage up your aspirations for what you're trying to do in your distance learning program. And in this system and in many we're seeing, there's a real benefit to thinking about a well-rounded education right now. Math and ELA have been dominant in K-12, and for good reason, but really ensuring that we're thinking about writing and science and music and arts, joy factor, engagement of multiple facets of kids right now. This is from ESSA and has been a helpful organizing tool. I share that up front because what I want to talk about are what is emerging as the overarching aspirations for each phase. It is hard. This is hard imaginative work. To re-envision school as a service, not a place. And taking that one step at a time can make it more manageable. Phase one, we're seeing a focus around relationships. Are all kids accounted for? Have we been in touch with them? Do they know who to talk to? A focus on engaging learning activities. Are there things for kids to do that are engaging them during their days, giving them purpose? Starting some routines and structures, and some feedback on work. This doesn't need to be graded. This doesn't need to be overthought. But the education is about the interaction between content, teaching, and students. And starting the feedback routines can allow for students to not just be producing a lot of work that doesn't get reviewed. So some feedback on work is fun. The second phase that we're seeing emerge would be pushing more into new learning and increasing the feedback on work and improving the structures. Phase 3 would be taking the learning activities to even the next level, really actually thinking about what do kids know, what do they need to learn, and then really at this point, hopefully having strong routines and structure and making sure that the feedback on work is very meaningful. Across all of the phases, we are seeing a good emphasis on making sure that instruction is not boring, death by worksheet, incoherent, or overly stressful at an already stressful time. And the truth is, in K2, there is just no solution for independent work at those ages that is emerging. We will continue to monitor and see what we can find, but in K2, a family member, a caregiver, a sibling, someone is going to need to support any learning activities, and being sensitive to that and designing for that seems to be important. For each grade span, we have seen some different aspirations for each phase in terms of the subjects and focus. From the jump in K2, reading, foundational skills, some kind of math and problem solving, and PE every day. We are all antsy in our homes, and thinking about how we can physically engage is not irrelevant. Every week, trying for some art project, some music. In phase 2, in K2, adding on writing a letter with some help and some kind of STEM project. And then in phase 3, really looking for creative solutions to get some peer interaction. The kids are missing their friends. And then the other thing that we're seeing interesting patterns around is service. How can we be of use to our communities during this time? And how do we harness students' energy to do that? We don't have solutions here exactly, but we do have a team working on ideas. And the idea of involving service learning is exciting to many systems. Similar in 3.8, I think in 3.8, upping the independent reading expectations. We see many people involving some kind of mindfulness during the day. Writing assignments with feedback every week. And then in phase 2, trying to pull in that peer interaction and more of the STEM, music and art, at least by phase 2. Also upping the frequency of work, of feedback on work, with the goal of getting by phase 3 to 2 assignments per week with that kind of feedback, and pulling in service and social studies. High school is a different ball of wax than K2 and 3.8. In some ways, it seems actually much easier because more like universities, there's some pattern recognition around how to do online courses. So looking at leveraging AP, dual enrollment, those already have fairly easy solutions available. Getting those core classes, grad requirements, completing work, and then just continuing contact. And in high school, assigning work and getting feedback does not feel like an impossible task. How you get the work, given bandwidth access, might need to be creatively done through taking pictures, texting to teachers. But this does feel like a place we can get to more of a normal more quickly. Wanting still to find solutions by phase 3 for CTE, electives, even extracurriculars. So those are the emerging aspirations we're seeing. Obviously, the materials for each of those subjects would vary by system, but there's a huge range of options at this point, and I think people are really trying to leverage what they already have in the most productive ways. Thinking through platforms, tech platforms, are you hoping everyone will use the same thing? Is there more autonomy there? Is a whole other set of considerations? And we're going to have a little bit more guidance on that next week, but I think the upfront thinking for leaders of how do we mitigate confusion and just encourage all of our online to be on the same platform, or all of our communications to be on the same platform. If we are doing digital or hybrid, or if we're doing more analog, how are we actually doing that interaction? Is another place for communications and clarity with your teams. And then just over communicating the timeline of events. What's happening today? What's happening tomorrow? Where are we going from here? What will principals get as their next step? And then coming back to those values, and in particular, grace around continuous improvement. These are some of the core beliefs that are anchoring some of our partners right now, and just remembering how important school is right now, and then landing with some encouragement. So this PowerPoint will be available and adaptable if it is useful to you. And thinking through these sets of decisions, your directors of instructional support for instruction partners have guides are ready to talk through any of this. And we are here. So let us know how we can be helpful. Let us know what problems you are finding that you need help solving. And to close today's video, I'm going to hand it over to the Blackwood family and the Dumas Britt family to send you off on your weekend. Thank you all so much. Let's get it started.
Coming to you from Houston, it's Blackwood Live.
Bienvenidos a la cripta. Dame tu cosita. Dame tu cosita.
So, how's homeschool going?
It's going. We're surviving. Second by second. No, rephrase that. Millisecond by millisecond.
So, what would you add to it, Jaylyn?
I would add pluses and minus.
So, you want to do some more math?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like real math when you we could do times and all that stuff. We could do reading.
Yeah, we did a little reading. Okay.
And we can write words.
What's the struggle right now, boys?
A lot of things.
A lot of things. Well, okay. So, what is your least?
You take your 6th grade teaching and push it on us.
Is that what I do?
Yes.
Plays. What's your favorite